Hey guys! Today we're going to be making a jellyfish aquarium. I chose to keep this one super simple and there are a couple of reasons why. One is the fact that when you go to Google and search for jellyfish tanks and aquariums, they tend to not really have a lot of decorations, and some of them are just the jellyfish and the water, because the jellyfish, I guess, don't need a place to hide the same way fish would, but also because the jellyfish are pretty interesting to look at on their own. The other reason is that I wanted to have a different type of element that could easily be crowded if you added too much detail, and that is that I wanted it to be glow in the dark, just to make it a bit different from the other aquariums I've done. Anyway, let's get started. So a lot of the jellyfish aquariums I saw were cylinder shapes, and so just to make it a bit different and super easy to make, I chose to use one of these travel shampoo bottles, and you just want to use a blade or a knife to cut it. Next, for the bottom, I mix some white sand and some glaze, stir this up really well, and then add it to the bottom. Now for the glow in the dark effect, you have a few different options. One would be to use acrylic paint, which you can get in different colors. The one thing I don't like about these is that a lot of them seem to need quite a thick layer in order to get a really good glowing effect. So you may want to do a small test piece before using it on your actual project. Another similar option would be to use something like glow in the dark window paint. I don't know if you've ever had something like that, but I used to have it when I was a kid. And of course, if you prefer, you can also use glow-in-the-dark polymer clay. What I'm using besides the paints are these glow-in-the-dark acrylic nail art powders that I usually use for making 3D pieces. You can get these super cheap on eBay, and you don't need to use the acrylic liquid together with them for this project. But really, you can use whatever you have. I first used one of the blue shades and mixed it up with some glaze, and then added some of this on top of the sand. Next, we're going to be making some simple foliage. For the first one, I'm flattening small pieces of clay and then making kind of like small funnel shapes. And I'm just adding a bunch of these to a base of clay. And for all the colors of polymer clay I used in this aquarium, I mixed them up with translucent. After baking, I applied a layer of the glow-in-the-dark paint. And then while the paint was still sticky, I dipped them into the powder. I didn't find that it was necessary to seal these with glaze, but if you are worried about the powder coming off, you can do this. Glue these in place. And then I also made some simple grass or seaweed looking stuff. Next you can mix and pour in your resin, and it doesn't really matter what brand you use. I'm using Solid Water by Deluxe Materials, but any clear resin will work. The reason why we're adding it now is just because it needs a long time to set, so we can easily make the jellyfish before it cures. And the reason why I'm adding it with a syringe is just because I mixed it up in a larger bowl and I tried to avoid spilling. The jellyfish are pretty similar to the one in my last video, just with a tiny bit more detail. I sculpted it in 2 parts. For the top part I made it on top of a ball tool, and because the ball tool doesn't have any plastic parts, I baked it on that tool. And for the bottom part you just want to bake it on a flat surface. After baking, I first added some detail using white acrylic paint. I then added the glow-in-the-dark paint on top, and then finished off with some of the powder. When adding them to the resin, you can either wait until the resin has thickened, or you can tie them to a stick like I did and then add a tiny bit of glue to the top of them where the string is attached, and then use this so they don't sink to the bottom. Lastly, this is completely optional, I just use some watercolors to paint the background. I then added this to the back using some double-sided tape, and the tank is done.